I'm sitting in my driveway, keys trembling in my hand, staring at my 2003 Honda Civic like it's about to betray me. The paint is faded, there's a dent in the passenger door from when I accidentally hit a shopping cart 3 years ago, and the muffler makes this embarrassing puttering sound that announces my arrival from 2 blocks away. Today is Vanessa's engagement party, and I already know what's waiting for me. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Riley Hartwell. I'm 26, and in my family's eyes, I'm the walking embodiment of missed potential. While my younger sister, Vanessa, drives a brand new BMW and lives in a penthouse in downtown Millbrook Heights, I'm still driving the same beat-up Honda I bought in college, living in a cramped apartment above Mrs. Chen's bakery on Elm Street. The smell of fresh bread is nice, but it doesn't exactly scream success the way Vanessa's marble countertops do. I check my phone one more time, hoping for some miracle text that would give me an excuse not to go. Instead, I find a message from Mom. Don't park that eyesore where the neighbors can see it. Use the back alley behind the house. The back alley. Like I'm some kind of shameful secret that needs to be hidden from polite society. I've been getting variations of this message for the past 3 years, ever since Vanessa landed her job at Blackstone Financial and started climbing the corporate ladder faster than anyone expected. Meanwhile, I've been working as a freelance graphic designer, taking whatever projects I can find, scraping together rent payments, and trying to convince myself that following my passion was the right choice. The Honda's engine coughs to life, and I wince at the sound. It's not that I don't want a newer car. Trust me, I dream about sliding behind the wheel of something that doesn't require a prayer and 3 tries to start. But every extra dollar I make goes somewhere else, somewhere my family doesn't know about, somewhere they'd never understand even if I tried to explain it. I pull out of my parking spot and begin the 20-minute drive to Willowbrook Estates, where Vanessa and Trevor have rented the community clubhouse for their engagement celebration. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm driving through increasingly expensive neighborhoods, my car looking more and more out of place with each passing block. By the time I reach the tree-lined streets of the estates, my Honda looks like it wandered in from another decade entirely. The parking lot is filled with gleaming vehicles. Tesla Model S sedans, Mercedes SUVs, a couple of Audis that probably cost more than I make in 2 years. I find a spot near the back, hoping to minimize the stark contrast between my rust-tinged bumper and the pristine chrome surrounding it. As I walk toward the entrance, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in a parked Porsche's window. My dress is nice enough, a navy blue number I found at a consignment shop and had tailored to fit perfectly, but I still feel like I'm wearing a costume in someone else's play. The moment I step through the clubhouse doors, I'm transported into Vanessa's world of Instagram-worthy perfection. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over arrangements of white roses and eucalyptus. Servers in bow ties circulate with champagne flutes and artisanal canapes. Everything is carefully curated, from the color-coordinated napkins to the playlist of sophisticated jazz that seems to complement the conversations rather than compete with them. Vanessa spots me immediately, gliding over in her designer cocktail dress, her engagement ring catching the light like a small disco ball. She's always been beautiful, but success has given her a confidence that makes her practically glow. Her smile is bright and perfect, the kind that photographs well for social media. "Riley, you made it!" Her voice carries just enough volume to draw attention from nearby guests. "I was worried your car might not survive the trip." The comment lands like a small punch to the gut, delivered with such casual cruelty that anyone overhearing might think it was sisterly teasing. But I know better. I've been on the receiving end of these subtle digs for years now, each one designed to remind me of my place in the family hierarchy. "Old Reliable got me here just fine," I reply, keeping my voice light even as my cheeks flush with embarrassment. Trevor appears at Vanessa's side, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit that probably costs more than my monthly rent. He's handsome in that generic way that wealthy men often are, with perfectly styled hair and teeth so white they could serve as a nightlight. His handshake is firm, his smile practiced. "Riley, congratulations on, well,
on making it here safely. And there's just enough pause before the word safely to make it clear he's talking about more than just the drive. Vanessa laughs, a tinkling sound that draws appreciative chuckles from the small crowd that's gathered around us. Trevor's being generous, she says, her eyes sparkling with mischief that feels more like malice. I told him about your transportation situation. We were actually taking bets on whether you'd need roadside assistance. The group laughs again, and I feel heat creeping up my neck. This is exactly what I expected, but it doesn't make it any less humiliating. I scan the faces around me, seeing the polite amusement with secondhand embarrassment that I've become accustomed to at family gatherings. These are Vanessa's people now, young professionals with stock portfolios and weekend houses in the Hamptons, the kind of people who see my life choices as either pitiable or incomprehensible.
Mom appears from across the room, elegant in a champagne-colored dress that coordinates perfectly with the party's color scheme. Her smile is warm when she greets Vanessa and Trevor, but it shifts to something more strained when she turns to me. "Riley, sweetheart, you look lovely," she says, though her eyes flick briefly toward the parking lot, as if she's already calculating how quickly she can get me to move my car to a less visible location. "Did you find parking okay?" "In the back, just like you suggested," I reply, and immediately regret the edge in my voice. But I'm tired of tiptoeing around everyone's embarrassment about my circumstances. Vanessa tilts her head, feigning concern. "Oh, you didn't have to hide back there. I mean, it's not like anyone here would judge you for having an older car." She pauses, just long enough for the irony to sink in. "We all understand that people have different priorities." The word priorities hangs in the air like an accusation, because that's what this is really about, isn't it? Not just the car, but what the car represents. In their minds, I'm driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic because I'm irresponsible with money, because I lack ambition, because I've made poor life choices that have led me to this point of financial mediocrity. If only they knew. A server approaches with a tray of champagne, and I gratefully accept a glass, needing something to do with my hands. The bubbles tickle my nose as I take a sip, trying to center myself for what I know will be a long evening of subtle humiliations and pointed observations about my life choices. "So, Riley," one of Trevor's friends says, his tone carrying that particular brand of aggressive politeness that wealthy people use when they're about to ask intrusive questions. "Vanessa tells us you're in graphic design? That must be interesting." The pause before interesting tells me everything I need to know about what Vanessa has told them about my career. I'm sure she's painted it as some kind of hobby that I've stubbornly refused to abandon in favor of a real job. "It is," I reply simply, not offering any additional information that they can use against me later. "And you work from home?" another person asks, as if this is somehow scandalous. "I work with clients remotely, yes." Vanessa jumps back into the conversation, her voice bright with false enthusiasm. "Riley's very creative. She's always been the artistic one in the family. Of course, it's not exactly lucrative, but you can't put a price on following your dreams, right?" The dismissiveness in her voice is so casual, so perfectly delivered, that it takes my breath away. She's managed to reduce years of hard work, late nights, and gradual business building to a quaint hobby that she tolerates the way one might tolerate a child's imaginary friend. I excuse myself to the restroom, needing a moment to compose myself before I say something I'll regret. As I walk away, I hear Vanessa's voice carrying across the room. She's sensitive about it. We all just try to be supportive, you know? Supportive. The word echoes in my mind as I stare at my reflection in the clubhouse's ornate bathroom mirror. This is what Vanessa calls support. Public humiliation disguised as concern, backhanded compliments that feel more like insults, and a constant reminder that I don't measure up to her standards or anyone else's. But here's what Vanessa doesn't know.
What none of them know, there's something in the trunk of my beat-up Honda Civic that would change everything. Something that would transform their pity into shock, their condescension into stunned silence. Something that proves that sometimes the most valuable things come in the most unexpected packages. I take a deep breath, straighten my shoulders, and prepare to return to the party. Because tonight, whether I planned it or not, everything is about to change. And my embarrassing old car is about to become the most important vehicle in that parking lot. Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Walking back into the main reception area feels like stepping onto a stage where everyone already knows their lines except me. The party has settled into its rhythm now. Clusters of well-dressed professionals holding crystal glasses, their conversations punctuated by the kind of laughter that sounds expensive. I navigate through the crowd, hyper-aware of how my footsteps sound different from everyone else's, how my consignment store dress moves differently than the designer pieces surrounding me. The clubhouse itself is a testament to Willowbrook Estate's commitment to understated luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer views of the manicured golf course beyond, where sprinklers create perfect arcs of water over emerald fairways. The hardwood floors gleam under strategically placed lighting, and every surface seems to reflect wealth back at itself in an endless loop of prosperity. Even the air smells expensive. Some combination of fresh flowers, premium champagne, and that indefinable scent of success that seems to cling to places where money congregates. I find myself gravitating toward the appetizer table, partly because I'm genuinely hungry, and partly because it gives me something to focus on besides the conversations happening around me. The spread is impressive. Smoked salmon on tiny blinis, some kind of truffle-infused cheese that probably costs more per ounce than I spend on groceries in a week, and delicate pastries that look too perfect to actually eat. "Those are divine," says a voice beside me, and I turn to see a woman about my age, impeccably dressed in a cream-colored suit that screams designer. Her smile is polished but not unkind. "I'm Charlotte Pemberton, Trevor's colleague from the firm." "Riley Hartwell," I reply, accepting her offered handshake. "Vanessa's sister."
Oh, wonderful. Vanessa speaks of you often. Charlotte's tone is diplomatic, which tells me exactly what kind of things Vanessa has been saying. She mentioned you're in the creative field? There it is again, that careful phrasing that makes my career sound like a hobby someone indulges in between more serious pursuits. I've heard variations of this question dozens of times, and I've learned to read the subtle differences in tone that reveal what people really think. Charlotte's version is polite but dismissive, the verbal equivalent of patting someone on the head. "I'm a graphic designer," I say, keeping my voice neutral. "I work with businesses on their branding and marketing materials." "How interesting," Charlotte replies, though her eyes have already begun scanning the room for more important conversations to join. "That must be so fulfilling." The word fulfilling in this context is code for unprofitable, and we both know it. I've become fluent in this particular language over the years, the way wealthy people express pity while maintaining plausible deniability about their condescension. Before I can respond, Vanessa materializes beside us with the supernatural timing she's always possessed when sensing an opportunity to control a narrative. Her arm slides through mine in a gesture that looks affectionate but feels like a restraint. "Charlotte, I see you've met my big sister," Vanessa says, and there's something in the way she emphasizes big sister that makes it sound like a consolation prize. Charlotte's always been the dreamer in the family. While I was studying business and economics, she was off sketching and painting. Different paths, you know? Charlotte nods understandingly, as if Vanessa has just explained some complicated family dynamic that requires delicate handling. "How wonderful that you've been able to pursue your passion," she says to me, and I recognize this as the same tone people use when talking to children about their crayon drawings. "Riley's actually quite talented,"
Vanessa continues, and I brace myself for whatever's coming next. She did the logo for that little cafe on Maple Street, the one with the mismatched furniture and the poetry readings. It's very authentic. The word authentic drips with implication. In Vanessa's world, authentic means quaint, unsophisticated, the kind of thing you'd appreciate in theory but would never actually want associated with your own brand. She's managed to praise my work while simultaneously diminishing it, a skill she's perfected over years of practice. That sounds charming, Charlotte replies, though her attention has clearly moved on to more interesting topics. She excuses herself with practiced grace, leaving Vanessa and me alone beside the appetizer table. You don't have to do that, I say quietly, once Charlotte is out of earshot. What? Vanessa's eyes are wide with manufactured innocence. Make my work sound like a cute hobby. I have real clients, Vanessa. I make real money. Vanessa's laugh is light and airy, designed to deflect rather than acknowledge. Riley, I'm not making anything sound like anything. I'm proud of you for following your dreams, even if they're not exactly traditional. There's that word again. Traditional. In Vanessa's vocabulary, this means lucrative, respectable, worthy of discussion in polite company. Everything my career apparently isn't. I watch as she scans the room, her gaze settling on a group of Trevor's friends near the bar. Her face brightens with the kind of genuine enthusiasm she never shows when talking about my life. Come on, she says, tugging my arm. I want you to meet some people. The group she leads me toward consists of 4 men and 2 women, all in their late 20s or early 30s, all wearing the uniform of young success, expensive watches, designer shoes, and that particular confidence that comes from never having to check your bank balance before making a purchase. They're discussing something about market volatility when we approach, their voices animated with the passion that people usually reserve for sports or romance. Everyone, Vanessa announces, I want you to meet my sister Riley. The introductions that follow blur together. Investment bankers, corporate lawyers, a pharmaceutical sales director, all with names that sound like they were designed for country club memberships and charity gala programs. They're polite enough, asking the standard questions about what I do and where I live, but I can see their interest waning as soon as they realize I'm not part of their economic ecosystem. So, you're the artist sister, says one of the men. Bradley or Brandon or something equally Connecticut, with a smile that's meant to be encouraging but feels patronizing. That's so cool. I always wished I had more creative talent. It's not really about talent, I reply, though I know he's not actually interested in a real conversation about creativity or business. It's mostly about problem solving and understanding what clients need. Right, he nods, but his eyes have already glazed over. To him, what I do isn't problem solving, it's finger painting for grown-ups. The conversation moves on without me, flowing back to topics I can't contribute to. Stock options, merger opportunities, real estate investments in emerging markets. I stand at the periphery of the circle, holding my champagne glass like a prop, wondering if anyone would notice if I simply walked away. That's when Trevor approaches our group, his arm around a man I haven't met yet. This newcomer is older, probably in his 40s, with silver threading through his dark hair and the kind of expensive suit that doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need to. Everyone, Trevor says, his voice carrying the weight of importance. I'd like you to meet Harrison Blackwell. He's the founder of Meridian Automotive Group. The reaction is immediate and palpable. I may not move in these circles, but even I recognize that name. Meridian Automotive Group owns half the luxury car dealerships on the East Coast. The group straightens collectively, suddenly more attentive, more deferential.
Harrison's smile is warm but measured as he shakes hands around the circle. When Trevor introduces me as Vanessa's sister, the graphic designer, I catch something flicker across Harrison's face. Not dismissal, exactly, but a polite acknowledgement of my irrelevance to his world. Pleasure to meet you, Riley, he says, and his handshake is firm but brief. Graphic design, that's a field that's changing rapidly with all the digital innovation. It's a throwaway comment, the kind of thing you say when you need to acknowledge someone's profession but don't actually want to discuss it. I nod and smile, playing my assigned role as the least important person in the conversation. Harrison just acquired 3 more dealerships in the Newport area, Trevor continues, and I can see dollar signs practically lighting up in everyone's eyes. He's expanding into the premium electric vehicle market. The conversation that follows is exactly what I expected. A mixture of business talk and subtle networking, everyone trying to position themselves as potentially valuable to Harrison's empire. Vanessa is particularly adept at this dance, mentioning her work at Blackstone Financial and subtly highlighting Trevor's connections in the investment world. I find myself studying Harrison as he talks, noting the way he commands attention without demanding it, how his casual mention of expanding into 3 or 4 new markets represents the kind of money that most people can't even conceptualize. His watch is understated, but clearly expensive, and when he pulls out his phone to check a message, I catch a glimpse of a Tesla key fob attached to his keychain. Riley, Vanessa's voice cuts through my observation. Harrison was just asking about local marketing firms. I told him you might have some insights, being in the creative field. The way she says creative field makes it sound like I'm a finger painter at a daycare center. Harrison turns toward me with polite interest, the kind of attention you give to someone when you're waiting for them to say something so you can gracefully move the conversation elsewhere. Actually, I say, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounds, I've worked with several automotive clients. The key is understanding that you're not just selling cars, you're selling lifestyles, aspirations, identity. Harrison's eyebrows lift slightly, and for the first time since we were introduced, he seems to actually see me, rather than looking through me. That's actually quite perceptive, he says. Most marketing people get caught up in features and benefits. They miss the emotional component entirely. Exactly, I continue, feeling a flyer of confidence. A luxury car isn't transportation. It's a statement about who you are and who you want to be. For a moment, the conversation feels real, substantial. Harrison nods thoughtfully, and I can see the wheels turning behind his eyes. But then Vanessa jumps back in, her smile bright and slightly sharp. Riley's always been good at understanding people. She has such an intuitive approach to everything, very organic. And just like that, I'm diminished again. Intuitive and organic are Vanessa's code words for unscientific and unprofessional. She's managed to make my business insights sound like lucky guesses, the kind of folk wisdom that might be charming, but isn't something you'd actually base business decisions on. Harrison's attention shifts away from me, drawn back into the more substantial conversation about market expansion and investment opportunities. I retreat to the edge of the circle again, my brief moment of relevance already forgotten. As I stand there, watching these people navigate their world of influence and opportunity, I feel the familiar weight of inadequacy settling over my shoulders. This is what every family gathering has become, a reminder of everything I'm not, everything I haven't achieved, everything I apparently never will achieve. But as I excuse myself from the group and walk toward the windows overlooking the golf course, I catch a glimpse of the parking lot beyond. My Honda Civic sits among the luxury vehicles like a rust-colored secret, looking even more pathetic under the soft glow of the security lights. If only they knew what was hidden in that embarrassing trunk. If only they understood that sometimes the most valuable things come in the most unexpected packages. Tonight, whether I'm ready or not, they're all about to learn that lesson the hard way. The evening takes a sharper turn when Mom approaches me near the dessert station, her expression carefully neutral in that way that always signals trouble. She's carrying a small plate of chocolate-covered strawberries, but I can tell from her posture that food is not what's on her mind. Riley, dear,
she says, her voice pitched low enough that nearby guests won't overhear, but loud enough to carry a subtle edge. Could we have a quick word? I follow her toward a quieter corner of the reception area, passing a group of Trevor's law firm colleagues who nod politely but don't invite me into their discussion about summer houses in the Berkshires. Mom sets her plate down on a side table and turns to face me with that expression I've come to dread, the one that says she's about to deliver criticism disguised as concern. Sweetheart, I need to ask you something, and please don't take this the wrong way. And I already know that whatever comes next will be exactly the wrong way, regardless of how I take it. Several people have mentioned seeing your car in the parking lot. Heat rises in my cheeks immediately. And, well, Mom glances around to make sure we're not being overheard, then continues in that careful tone she uses when discussing family embarrassments. This is such an important night for Vanessa and Trevor. Their friends are all very successful people, very image conscious, and I'm just concerned that
my car is embarrassing you, I finish, cutting through her diplomatic language to get to the point. Mom's face flushes slightly, caught between her desire to be tactful and her genuine mortification about my Honda's presence among the luxury vehicles outside. It's not about embarrassment, Riley. It's about appropriateness. These people, they have certain expectations. Expectations about what kind of car I should drive to my sister's engagement party. Expectations about success, about stability, about being taken seriously. Mom's voice carries a note of desperation, as if she's trying to explain something crucial that I'm somehow failing to grasp. When people see that car, they make assumptions about you, about our family, about how well we've provided for our children. The last part hits like a slap. This isn't really about my car at all. It's about my visible lack of material success says about Mom's parenting, about the family status in their social circle. My beat-up Honda isn't just a transportation choice. It's a public admission that the Hartwells haven't managed to launch both daughters into prosperity. Mom, it's a car, I say, though my voice lacks conviction. It gets me from point A to point B. That's all I need. But it's not all you need, is it? Her tone shifts from diplomatic to genuinely concerned. Riley, you're 26 years old. You're intelligent, talented, beautiful. You should be driving something that reflects your potential, not something that makes people wonder what went wrong. Before I can respond, Vanessa appears beside us as if summoned by some internal radar that alerts her to moments when I might be defending myself. She's carrying a glass of champagne and wearing an expression of bright, false cheer that immediately puts me on guard. "What are we talking about over here?" she asks, though her tone suggests she already knows. "Just discussing Riley's transportation situation," Mom says, and the clinical way she phrases it makes my car sound like a medical condition. Vanessa's eyes light up with the kind of mischievous delight she's always gotten from my discomfort. "Oh, speaking of which, you'll never guess what happened earlier. Mrs. Whitmore from the country club asked if we were having some kind of charity drive. She thought maybe we were collecting cars for disadvantaged families." The cruelty of this comment is breathtaking, delivered with such casual malice that it takes me a moment to process it fully. Vanessa has managed to turn a simple misunderstanding into a story that positions my car as so pathetic that rich strangers assume it must belong to someone in need of charity. "She was trying to be helpful," Vanessa continues, her smile never wavering. "She offered to write a check. Can you imagine? I had to explain that it actually belongs to my sister." Mom winces visibly at this revelation, and I can practically see her calculating how this story will spread through their social network. The Hartwell daughter whose car is so decrepit that country club members mistake it for a charity case. It's exactly the kind of anecdote that will follow our family for months. "That's hilarious," I managed to say.
though my voice sounds strained even to my own ears. Isn't it? Vanessa agrees, completely missing or ignoring my sarcasm. Though I have to say, Riley, it might be time to consider an upgrade. I mean, Trevor and I would be happy to help you find something more suitable. There are some lovely used cars that wouldn't cost too much. The offer is delivered with such condescending sweetness that it makes my teeth ache. Vanessa is positioning herself as the generous sister, offering to rescue me from my own poor choices while simultaneously highlighting just how far I have fallen behind her standards. I don't need help finding a car, I reply, my voice sharper than I intended. Of course not. Mom jumps in quickly, sensing the tension escalating. But maybe it's something to think about. For your own sake, dear. People do notice these things. What things exactly? Success markers, Vanessa says, as if this should be obvious. The car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, the clothes you wear. They tell a story about who you are and where you're going in life. And what story does my car tell? Vanessa's pause is deliberate, calculated for maximum impact. That you've given up, she says finally, her voice soft but cutting. I haven't given up, I say quietly, but even as the words leave my mouth, I wonder if anyone believes them, including me. Then prove it, Vanessa challenges, her eyes bright with the thrill of having cornered me. Get a car that shows the world you're serious about your future. Stop driving around in something that looks like it should be in a junkyard. Vanessa, Mom says, a warning note in her voice, but she doesn't actually disagree with the sentiment. No, I think this needed to be said, Vanessa continues, warming to her theme. Riley, you're my sister, and I love you, but you're not doing yourself any favors with these choices. People judge. It's not fair, but it's reality. And right now the reality is that you look like someone who's barely keeping her life together.
The accuracy of this assessment is what makes it so devastating. Because in many ways, she's right. I am barely keeping my life together, at least by their standards. My apartment is small, my car is old, my bank account is always just a few $100s away from empty. By every metric that matters to people like Trevor and Harrison Blackwell, I am failing. But what Vanessa doesn't know, what none of them know, is that my financial situation isn't what it appears to be. Every dollar I don't spend on a new car, every sacrifice I make to maintain my modest lifestyle, serves a purpose they couldn't possibly understand. You know what, I say, standing straighter and meeting Vanessa's gaze directly. You're right about one thing. People do judge based on appearances. They make assumptions about what success looks like, about what matters, about who deserves respect. Exactly, Vanessa says, thinking she's won the argument. But sometimes, I continue, my voice gaining strength, the people doing the judging are wrong. Sometimes what looks like failure is actually something else entirely. Mom and Vanessa exchange a look that I recognize immediately. The silent communication between family members who think one of their own is deluding herself. It's the same look they used to share when I announced my intention to study art instead of business, the same look they've been giving me for years whenever I've tried to defend my choices. Riley, we're not trying to be cruel. We just want what's best for you. What you think is best for me, I correct, based on what you think success looks like. Based on what success actually looks like, Vanessa interjects. Riley, look around this room. These people, they're doctors, lawyers, business owners, investment bankers. They're successful by any objective measure. And they all have one thing in common. They understand that image matters, that perception shapes reality. And what's your point? I ask. My point is that your perception problem isn't just about the car. It's about everything. The way you live, the choices you make, the fact that you seem content with mediocrity. Vanessa's voice carries a note of genuine frustration, as if my stubborn refusal to conform to her vision of success is a personal affront. Don't you want more than this? The question hits harder than I expect it to, because it forces me to confront something I've been avoiding. Do I want more than this? Do I want the recognition, the respect, the easy confidence that comes with material success? The honest answer is yes, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm tired of being the cautionary tale, the family disappointment, the sister who never quite figured it out. But what Vanessa doesn't understand is that wanting something and being willing to sacrifice everything else for it are two different things. What she sees as my failure to launch, I see it as my commitment to something more important than social status. I want to be judged for who I am, not what I drive, I say finally. That's naive, Riley, Vanessa replies, and there's something almost pitying in her voice now. The world doesn't work that way. People form opinions in the first 30 seconds they meet you, based entirely on external factors, your car, your clothes, your address. These things matter whether you want them to or not. So I should change who I am to meet other people's expectations? You should change your circumstances to reflect your potential, Mom interjects, clearly trying to find middle ground. We know you're capable of more than this, sweetheart. We just want to see you thrive. Thrive. It's such a loaded word, carrying with it all their assumptions about what a thriving life looks like. In their minds, thriving means climbing ladders, accumulating possessions, checking boxes on some predetermined list of adult accomplishments. What they don't know, what I'm not ready to tell them yet, is that I am thriving, just not in ways they can see or understand. What they don't know is that my beat-up Honda Civic is carrying something in its trunk that would fundamentally change how they see me, how they see success, how they see the choices I've made. But that revelation will have to wait. For now, I'm still the family disappointment, standing in a corner of my sister's engagement party, being lectured about image and perception by people who think they understand my life better than I do. I should go check on something, I say, needing to escape this conversation before it does any more damage to what's left of my composure. Riley, Vanessa calls after me as I start to walk away. We're having this conversation because we care about you. I hope you know that. I turn back to look at her, this sister who has spent the evening systematically dismantling my self-worth in front of her successful friends, who has turned my transportation choice into a family crisis, and who genuinely believes that her brand of tough love is what I need to hear. I know, I say, and I mean it. That's what makes it so complicated. Vanessa does care about me, in her own way. She wants me to succeed, wants me to be happy, wants me to find my place in the world. She just can't conceive of a version of success that doesn't look exactly like hers. As I walk away from them, moving through the crowd of successful professionals and their discussions of market trends and investment opportunities, I feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me like a physical force. Everyone here sees the same thing when they look at me. Potential unfulfilled, promises unkept.
But in a few hours, when this party is over and the last guest has driven away in their luxury vehicle, they're all going to learn something that will change everything. They're going to discover that sometimes the most important stories are hidden in the most unlikely places. And my rested, puttering, embarrassing Honda Civic is about to become the most significant car in the parking lot. I escape to the clubhouse restroom, needing a moment to collect myself after the brutal conversation with Mom and Vanessa. The bathroom is as elegant as everything else in this place. Marble countertops, gold fixtures, and hand towels that are probably worth more than my grocery budget for a month. I splash cold water on my wrists, a trick I learned years ago to calm my nerves without ruining my makeup. The face staring back at me in the ornate mirror looks tired, defeated. My dress still looks nice, my hair is still in place, but there's something in my eyes that wasn't there when I arrived tonight. A kind of resignation that I hate seeing but can't quite shake. I'm about to return to the party when my phone buzzes with a text message. The name on the screen makes my heart skip. Dr. Elena Rodriguez from Riverside Children's Hospital. Riley, I'm so sorry to bother you on a Saturday evening, but there's been an emergency situation with one of our young patients. We need to discuss the foundation matter urgently. Are you available for a call? My hand shakes slightly as I read the message. The foundation matter. Of course this would happen tonight, when I'm already emotionally raw and surrounded by people who see me as a failure. I text back. I'm at a family event, but can step away for a few minutes.
Is everything okay? The response comes immediately. The family of the little girl we discussed, Emma Chen, her condition has taken a turn. They're asking about accelerating the timeline. Can we meet tomorrow morning instead? I know it's short notice. Emma Chen, 7 years old, diagnosed with pediatric leukemia 6 months ago, parents struggling to afford the experimental treatment that could save her life. She's one of 12 children currently being supported by the foundation I started 3 years ago, the foundation that no one in my family knows exists, the foundation that is the reason I drive a 15-year-old Honda and live in a tiny apartment above a bakery. I type back, of course. Riverside Hospital at 9 a.m., conference room B? Perfect. Thank you, Riley. You're truly making a difference in these children's lives. I stare at the message for a long moment, feeling the familiar mix of pride and secrecy that has become the defining characteristic of my adult life. Dr. Rodriguez sees me as someone who makes a difference, someone whose work matters, someone whose sacrifices are changing lives. But here, surrounded by my family's friends and their luxury cars and their discussions of stock portfolios, I'm still just the failure sister with the embarrassing transportation. The bathroom door opens and Charlotte Pemberton walks in, looking as polished as she did an hour ago. She nods politely and moves to the mirror beside mine, touching up her already perfect lipstick. Lovely party, she says, making the kind of small talk that wealthy people excel at. Vanessa knows how to put together an event. She's certainly done well for herself, Charlotte continues, and there's something in her tone that makes me look at her more carefully. She's done well for herself. Trevor, too, of course. Though I have to say, the pressure in their world can be intense. I'm not sure what she's getting at, so I just nod and wait for her to continue. The constant need to maintain appearances, to always be climbing higher, achieving more. Charlotte caps her lipstick and turns to face me directly. It's exhausting, honestly. Sometimes I wonder what we're all running toward. This is not the conversation I expected to have with one of Trevor's corporate colleagues in a country club bathroom. There's something almost vulnerable in Charlotte's voice, a crack in the polished facade that makes her seem suddenly human. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's definition of success? She asks, and the question catches me completely off guard. Every day, I answer before I can stop myself. Charlotte smiles, and for the first time tonight, it looks genuine rather than diplomatic. I thought so. You have this look, like you're seeing all of us very clearly, but we're not seeing you at all. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who feels the same way sometimes. She adjusts her designer purse on her shoulder. For what it's worth, I think there's something to be said for marching to your own drummer, even if the people around you don't understand the music. Before I can respond, the bathroom door opens again and 2 more women enter, both talking loudly about someone's recent divorce and how it's affecting their mutual fund investments. The moment of unexpected connection with Charlotte evaporates as quickly as it appeared, and we both slip back into our public personas. Well, Charlotte says brightly, I should get back to the party. It was nice talking with you, Riley. I follow her out of the bathroom, but instead of returning immediately to the main reception area, I find myself drawn toward the clubhouse's side entrance that leads to a small patio overlooking the parking lot. I need another moment before I can face the crowd again, before I can pretend that Vanessa's words haven't shaken me more than I want to admit. The evening air is cooler now, carrying the scent of jasmine from the landscaping and the distant sound of highway traffic. From this vantage point, I can see the entire parking lot spread out below, a collection of gleaming metal and chrome that represents more wealth than most people see in a lifetime. My Honda sits in the far corner like a rust-colored afterthought, its dented bumper and faded paint job making it look almost comically out of place among the Tesla Model S sedans and BMW SUVs. For a moment, I allow myself to see it through their eyes. Not just old and unreliable, but embarrassing. A public declaration of failure that follows me wherever I go. But then I think about Emma Chen, about the 12 other children whose medical bills I help cover every month, about the foundation that has quietly distributed over $200,000 in the past 3 years to families who thought they were out of options. I think about Dr. Rodriguez's message, about how my work is making a difference in ways that none of these successful people with their expensive cars could imagine. That's when I hear footsteps behind me and turn to see someone I don't recognize approaching from the main reception area. He's older than most of the other guests, probably in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of weathered face that speaks of outdoor work rather than boardroom meetings. His suit is nice, but not ostentatious, and there's something in his bearing that suggests competence rather than wealth. "Beautiful evening," he says, joining me at the patio railing. "Yes, it is," I reply, wondering if this is another of Trevor's colleagues that I somehow missed meeting earlier. "I'm Marcus Webb," he says, extending his hand. "I don't think we've been introduced." "Riley Hartwell. I'm Vanessa's sister." His handshake is firm, calloused, the grip of someone who works with his hands. "Ah, the graphic designer. Vanessa mentioned you earlier." I brace myself for whatever version of my story Vanessa has been telling, but Marcus's expression doesn't carry the polite dismissal I've grown accustomed to tonight. "She said you work with small businesses, helping them with their marketing and branding. That's important work. A lot of good companies fail because they can't communicate what makes them special." This is not the reaction I expected. Most people, especially at events like this, tend to gloss over my work as if it's a hobby that I'll eventually outgrow. But Marcus is talking about it like it's a real profession that serves a real purpose. "What do you do?" I ask, genuinely curious about this man who doesn't seem to fit the usual mold of Trevor and Vanessa's social circle. "I own a construction company." "Webb & Associates. We do mostly commercial work, office buildings, retail spaces, some residential developments." "That sounds interesting," I say, and I mean it. There's something refreshing about talking to someone whose work involves creating tangible things, rather than manipulating abstract financial instruments. It can be, though the business side has gotten more complicated over the years. Used to be, you could succeed just by doing good work at a fair price. Now there's branding to think about, digital marketing, social media presence. He glances at me with what looks like genuine interest. "That's actually what brought me here tonight." "I'm sorry." "Trevor mentioned that his future sister-in-law was in graphic design, and I've been looking for someone to help rebrand my company. We're expanding into sustainable construction, green building materials, solar integration, that kind of thing. But I'm not sure how to communicate that shift to potential clients." I stare at him, processing this unexpected turn in the conversation. Here I am, having spent the evening being treated like a failure by my own family, and a successful business owner is asking about hiring me for what sounds like a substantial project. That's a significant transition, I say, my professional instincts kicking in. Green construction is a growing market, but it requires a different kind of messaging than traditional building. You're not just selling construction services anymore. You're selling environmental responsibility, long-term value, corporate social responsibility. "That's exactly what I was hoping to hear," Marcus says, and there's genuine excitement in his voice. "Would you be interested in discussing this further? Maybe we could set up a meeting next week to talk about what this might look like." I'm about to respond when the patio door opens and Vanessa appears, her face bright with hostess enthusiasm, but her eyes slightly sharp as she takes in the scene. "There you are, Riley," she says, approaching with that graceful glide she's perfected over the years. "Marcus, I see you've met my sister." "I have indeed," Marcus replies. "We were just discussing a potential business collaboration." Vanessa's smile doesn't falter, but I catch a flicker of something, maybe surprise or concern, cross her face. "Oh, how wonderful. Riley, you didn't mention you were looking for new clients." "I'm always open to interesting projects," I say, though I can hear the defensiveness creeping into my voice. "Of course you are." Vanessa says, and there's something in her tone that makes Marcus glance between us curiously. "Riley's very entrepreneurial."
always willing to take on new challenges. The word entrepreneurial comes out sounding like unpredictable, and I can see Marcus picking up on the subtle tension between us.
Well, he says diplomatically, entrepreneurial sounds like exactly what I need for this rebranding project. Sometimes fresh perspectives are worth more than established track records. It's a gracious comment, but I can see it landing differently with Vanessa than he intended. To her, fresh perspectives probably sounds like code for inexperienced, and worth more than established track records might as well be cheaper than real professionals. I'm sure you two will figure something out, Vanessa says with bright dismissiveness. Marcus, you should really try the salmon canapes. The caterer is someone we use for all our events. She's redirecting the conversation away from my potential business opportunity and toward safer territory. Vendors, service providers, the kind of practical matters that successful people discuss at parties. But Marcus doesn't take the bait. Actually, I'd love to hear more about Riley's approach to brand development. This green construction initiative is really important to me, and I want to make sure we get the messaging right from the beginning. Vanessa's smile becomes a fraction more strained. She's not used to people being more interested in my work than her party planning expertise. Of course, she says, though you might want to consider some of the larger marketing firms in the area as well. Sometimes these kinds of transitions require more resources than smaller operations can provide. The dig is subtle but unmistakable. She's suggesting that I lack the resources, the capability, the professional infrastructure to handle a significant rebranding project. It's delivered with such sweet concern that Marcus might not even realize it's an insult, but I feel it like a physical blow. Sometimes smaller operations provide more personal attention and creative flexibility, Marcus responds, and I could kiss him for it. I'm not looking for a massive agency with overhead and account executives. I want someone who understands the vision and can help me communicate it authentically. For the first time all evening, I feel like someone sees value in what I do. Someone recognizes that my approach might actually be an asset rather than a limitation. But even as I savor this moment of professional validation, I can see Vanessa processing this conversation, calculating how it fits into her understanding of family dynamics and social hierarchies. Well, she says finally, I'll leave you two to discuss business. Riley, don't forget we're doing the toast in about 20 minutes. She glides away, back toward the main reception area, but I can feel her displeasure radiating across the patio like heat from asphalt. She's not angry exactly, but she's unsettled by this deviation from the script she had written for tonight. Marcus watches her go, then turns back to me with a slight smile. Family dynamics are complicated, aren't they? You have no idea, I reply, and we both laugh. For what it's worth, I've been in business for 25 years, and I've learned to trust my instincts about people. You strike me as someone who does work that matters, even if not everyone recognizes it yet. The words hit me harder than I expect them to, mainly because they come at the end of an evening when I've been questioning everything about my choices, my priorities, my definition of success. Here's a successful businessman telling me that my work matters, that my approach has value, that my perspective is worth something. But what Marcus doesn't know, what no one at this party knows, is that my work already matters in ways they couldn't imagine. What they don't know is that the car they've been mocking all evening is connected to something that would completely change how they see me, how they see success, how they see what it means to make a difference in the world. Thank you, I say simply, because there's too much I can't explain, too much that has to remain secret for now. I mean it, Marcus continues, and I'd really like to discuss that rebranding project with you. Can I get your business card? I hand him one of my cards, the simple design that I created myself looking suddenly shabby compared to the embossed corporate cards that have been exchanged all evening. But Marcus examines it with genuine interest, running his thumb over the texture of the cardstock. Nice work, he says. Clean, professional, memorable. This is exactly the kind of aesthetic sensibility I'm looking for.
As we head back toward the main reception area, I feel something shift inside me. The evening isn't over, and I'm sure there will be more subtle humiliations before I can escape to my embarrassing car and drive home to my tiny apartment. But for the first time tonight, I feel like someone sees potential in me, rather than failure. But what Marcus doesn't realize is that he's about to become part of a story that's much bigger than a simple rebranding project. What none of them realize is that everything is about to change, and my beat-up Honda Civic is about to reveal secrets that would transform how they see everything they thought they knew about success, sacrifice, and what it means to make a difference in the world. The toast happens exactly as Vanessa planned it. Crystal glasses raised, heartfelt speeches about love and future happiness, perfectly timed applause that echoes off the clubhouse's vaulted ceiling. I stand at the back of the crowd, clapping politely while Trevor speaks about finding his soulmate, and Vanessa glows beside him like she's absorbing all the admiration in the room. But my mind keeps drifting to the text message from Dr. Rodriguez, to little Emma Chen, whose condition has taken a turn, and the foundation meeting I need to prepare for tomorrow morning. While everyone around me celebrates the joining of two successful lives, I'm thinking about a 7-year-old girl whose parents are watching their savings disappear into medical bills that could buy several of the cars in this parking lot.
After the formal toasts conclude, the party shifts into a more relaxed phase. The older guests begin making their polite departures, while the younger crowd settles in for what will probably be several more hours of networking disguised as celebration. I'm calculating my own exit strategy when Marcus Webb approaches me again, this time carrying 2 cups of coffee from the dessert station. "Thought you might need this," he says, offering me one of the cups. "The champagne's nice, but sometimes caffeine is more useful." I accept the coffee gratefully, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. "Thank you. You're right, it's been a long evening." "Mind if I ask you something?" Marcus settles into one of the empty chairs at a nearby table, gesturing for me to join him. "Earlier, when we were talking about the rebranding project, your sister seemed concerned. Is there something I should know about your work situation?" The question catches me off guard with its directness. Most people would dance around family dynamics with diplomatic language, but Marcus appears to be someone who prefers straight talk. "I think there are different ways to measure success," I say finally. "Vanessa measures it in salary figures and status symbols. I measure it in other things, such as..." Before I can answer, Charlotte Pemberton approaches our table, carrying her own coffee and looking slightly frazzled in a way that's completely at odds with her earlier polished composure. "Riley, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I just had the strangest conversation, and I thought you should know about it." Marcus and I both look up at her expectantly. "I was talking to Harrison Blackwell. You remember, the automotive group owner? He mentioned that he's been researching local design firms for a new marketing campaign, and your name came up in his inquiries." My coffee cup freezes halfway to my lips. "My name?" "Apparently, one of his business contacts recommended you specifically. Someone who saw work you did for the Riverside Medical Foundation? He said the branding work was exceptional, exactly the kind of sophisticated approach he's looking for." The blood drains from my face so quickly that I feel dizzy. The Riverside Medical Foundation? The charitable organization I created to support families dealing with pediatric medical emergencies? The foundation that's supposed to be completely separate from my regular graphic design work? That operates under strict confidentiality agreements to protect the privacy of the families we help? I stammer, unable to form a coherent response. Marcus is watching this exchange with growing interest. "Sounds like you've got some impressive work that people are talking about." Charlotte sits down uninvited, leaning forward with the intensity of someone who's just discovered something significant. "Riley, Harrison was very complimentary about the foundation's materials. He said whoever designed their visual identity understood how to communicate compassion without sentimentality,
Professionalism without coldness. Those were his exact words. I set my coffee cup down with trembling hands, my mind racing through the implications of this conversation. Harrison Blackwell, with his luxury car empire and his connections throughout the business community, has somehow encountered my foundation work that I've kept carefully separate from my family life, from social situations like this, from anyone who might connect it back to me personally. The thing is, Charlotte continues, Harrison mentioned that he's been trying to identify the designer behind the foundation's materials because he wants to hire them for his new corporate social responsibility campaign. He's launching some kind of initiative to support children's charities, and he specifically wants someone who understands how to handle sensitive subject matter with the right tone. Marcus's eyebrows lift. Corporate social responsibility work can be very lucrative, he says to me, and if Harrison Blackwell is specifically seeking you out, he doesn't know it's me, I interrupt, my voice barely higher than a whisper. What do you mean? Charlotte asks. I take a deep breath, realizing that this moment, sitting at a small table in the corner of my sister's engagement party, might be when my carefully constructed walls finally come tumbling down. The Riverside Medical Foundation work, I designed all of their materials pro bono. They don't use my business name in any of their publicity materials. Everything is credited to RMF Design Services to maintain privacy for the families we help. But you could tell Harrison that you're the designer, Marcus says, clearly not understanding why this would be a problem. It's complicated, I reply, though that's a massive understatement. Charlotte's phone buzzes and she glances at it with a frown. Actually, it might be about to get less complicated. Harrison just texted me. He's still here, and he asked if I could introduce him to Vanessa's sister. Apparently, someone told him you might be able to connect him with the RMF designer. My heart starts pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. This is exactly what I've been trying to avoid for 3 years. The intersection of my secret charitable work with my family's social circle, the moment that the carefully separated parts of my life collide in ways I can't control.
Charlotte, I say urgently, please don't tell Harrison that I'm the designer. Not yet. I need to think about this. But why? She asks, genuinely confused. This could be a huge opportunity for you. Harrison Blackwell doesn't just hire anyone. If he's seeking you out specifically, it means your work has made a real impression. Marcus nods in agreement. She's right, Riley. This kind of endorsement could transform your business overnight. They're both looking at me with expressions of concern and confusion, unable to understand why I'm not jumping at what they see as an incredible professional opportunity. But what they don't know, what no one at this party knows, is that accepting Harrison's offer would require revealing the true extent of my charitable work, which would inevitably lead to questions about funding, about how a struggling graphic designer has managed to support a foundation that has distributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to families in crisis. There are things about the foundation work that are private, I say carefully, confidential. I can't just step forward and claim credit without considering the implications for the families involved. It's not entirely a lie, but it's not the whole truth either. The real reason I can't casually reveal my connection to the Riverside Medical Foundation is that doing so would expose the fact that I'm not just their pro bono designer, I'm their primary financial backer. The struggling artist who drives a beat-up Honda and lives above a bakery has somehow managed to fund medical treatments for more than 30 children over the past 3 years. I understand about confidentiality, Charlotte says, but surely you could work something out. Harrison isn't asking for private information about the families. He just wants to hire the same designer for his own charity work. Before I can respond, I see Harrison Blackwell himself approaching our table, his confident stride cutting through the scattered groups of remaining party guests. He's followed by someone I don't recognize, a younger woman in an expensive suit, who's clearly some kind of assistant or associate. "Charlotte," Harrison says warmly, "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Not at all," Charlotte replies, standing to greet him. "Harrison, I'd like to meet Riley Hartwell, Vanessa's sister, and this is Marcus Webb, who owns Webb & Associates Construction." Harrison shakes hands with both of us, his grip firm and his attention focused in that way that successful people have perfected. The woman with him hangs back slightly, tablet in hand, clearly ready to take notes on whatever business might transpire. "Riley," Harrison says, settling into an empty chair, "Charlotte mentioned that you might be able to help me connect with the designer behind the Riverside Medical Foundation's branding work." I feel Marcus and Charlotte both watching me intently, waiting to see how I'll handle this moment. My mouth feels dry, and I'm acutely aware that whatever I say next will have consequences I can't fully predict. "The foundation is very particular about protecting their design team's privacy," I say slowly, choosing each word carefully. "They work with sensitive situations, and they prefer to keep their professional relationships confidential." Harrison nods understandingly. "Of course, I completely respect that, but the work I've seen from them is exactly what I'm looking for. Sophisticated, emotionally intelligent, professional, without being cold. I'm willing to offer very competitive compensation for the right designer." "What kind of compensation?" Marcus asked, his business instincts clearly engaged. "For the right person, someone who can handle a multi-year corporate philanthropy campaign, we're talking about a contract in the mid-six figures," Harrison says, casually, as if this amount of money is barely worth mentioning. Charlotte's eyes widen, and Marcus lets out a low whistle. I feel the blood rushing in my ears because Harrison Blackwell has just casually offered more money than I make in 3 years. Money that could fund the foundation's work for the next decade without requiring the personal sacrifices that have become the defining characteristic of my adult life. "That's a significant opportunity," I manage to say. "It is," Harrison agrees, "but I'm very specific about what I want. I've seen a lot of charity marketing over the years, and most of it is either too manipulative or too sterile. The Riverside Foundation's materials strike exactly the right balance. They communicate urgency without exploitation, hope without false promises. That takes real skill and understanding." He's describing my work with the kind of professional appreciation that I've never heard from anyone in my family, praising the exact qualities that I've struggled to develop over years of working with families in crisis. For a moment, I allow myself to imagine what it would be like to step forward, to claim credit for the work he's praising, to accept the kind of professional opportunity that could change everything. But then I think about Emma Chen, about the other children whose medical bills I help cover, about the careful financial balancing act that allows me to support the foundation while maintaining the fiction that I'm just a struggling designer. Accepting Harrison's offer would mean revealing the source of the foundation's funding, which would inevitably lead to questions about how I've managed to accumulate and distribute so much money. "I'll need to discuss this with the foundation's leadership," I say finally. "They're very careful about any changes to their operational structure." "Of course." Harrison pulls out his business card. "But I hope they'll consider it. This could be beneficial for everyone involved. My company gets the design expertise we're looking for, and the foundation gets a high-profile corporate partner who could bring additional funding and visibility to their cause." I accept his card with hands that I hope aren't visibly shaking. Marcus and Charlotte are both looking at me with expressions that mix excitement and confusion. They can't understand why I'm not more enthusiastic about what's clearly an incredible opportunity.
As Harrison and his associate excuse themselves and move on to other conversations, Marcus leans forward with concern evident in his voice. "Riley, I have to ask, is everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," I lie. "It's just a lot to process." Charlotte nods sympathetically. It must be overwhelming to have someone like Harrison Blackwell actively seeking out your work. But Riley, this really could change everything for you professionally. She's right, of course. This could change everything. But what Charlotte doesn't understand is that everything changing is exactly what I've been trying to prevent for 3 years. My current life requires a careful balance of secrets and sacrifices, a delicate structure that allows me to fund the foundation's work while maintaining the appearance of struggle that keeps my family from asking too many questions about my finances. Harrison Blackwell's offer threatens to upset that balance in ways that could expose not just my charitable work, but the true extent of my financial situation. Because the dirty secret that no one at this party knows is that the struggling graphic designer who drives a beat-up Honda isn't struggling at all. I have money, significant money sitting in carefully managed investment accounts, money that I'm chosen not to spend on myself, money that goes instead to children like Emma Chen who need experimental treatments that insurance won't cover. I should probably head home soon, I say, standing up from the table. It's been a long evening. Of course, Marcus says, also standing. But Riley, I hope you'll still consider our conversation about the rebranding project. And I hope you'll seriously think about Harrison's offer too. Opportunities like this don't come along often. As I gather my purse and prepare to make my exit, I catch sight of Vanessa across the room, still holding court among her remaining guests, still glowing with the success of her perfectly executed evening. In a few hours, she'll be home in her luxury apartment, probably texting her friends about the party's highlights, secure in her position as the successful sister, the one who made all the right choices. What Vanessa doesn't know is that I'm about to drive home in my embarrassing Honda to spend the rest of the evening preparing for a foundation meeting that could determine whether a 7-year-old girl gets access to treatment that could save her life. What she doesn't know is that the car she's mocked all evening is carrying something in its trunk that would fundamentally alter how she sees success, sacrifice, and what it means to make a difference in the world. But tomorrow morning, when I meet with Dr. Rodriguez at Riverside Children's Hospital, when I review Emma Chen's case file and approve the funding for her experimental treatment, I'll be using money that came from the same carefully managed accounts that allow me to live modestly while supporting other families in crisis. The irony isn't lost on me that Harrison Blackwell wants to hire the designer behind the Riverside Medical Foundation's success, not knowing that the foundation's primary benefactor is standing right in front of him, wearing a consignment store dress and preparing to drive home in a 15-year-old Honda that her own family is embarrassed to be seen with. My exit strategy crumbles the moment I step outside into the parking lot. Vanessa catches up with me near the clubhouse entrance, her heels clicking against the concrete with determined precision. "Riley, wait," she calls, slightly breathless from hurrying. "We need to talk." I turn to face her, keys already in my hand, hoping this wouldn't turn into another lecture about my life choices. But there's something different in her expression tonight. Not the usual condescending concern, but genuine confusion mixed with what looks like frustration. "I just had the most interesting conversation with Harrison Blackwell. He seems to think you have connections to some high-end design work that no one in the family knows about." My stomach clenches. Harrison tends to overestimate things. Does he? Because he specifically mentioned the Riverside Medical Foundation, and he seemed to think their design materials were created by someone with serious professional credentials, someone whose work he wants to pay 6 figures for. The number hangs between us like an accusation. 6 figures is more than Vanessa makes at Blackstone Financial, more than Trevor brings in at his law firm, more than our parents ever imagined either of their daughters would earn in a single year. "I told you it's complicated." Complicated how? Vanessa steps closer, and I can see her trying to piece together a puzzle that doesn't make sense to her. "Riley, if you're involved with work that sophisticated, work that people like Harrison Blackwell are seeking out, then why are you living like you're barely getting by?" It's the question I've been dreading for 3 years, the one that threatens to unravel the careful fiction I've constructed around my financial situation. Because how do you explain to someone who measures success in salary figures and status symbols that you've chosen to live modestly while secretly funding medical treatments for children you'll never meet? "Maybe I have different priorities than you think," I say carefully. Vanessa's laugh is sharp, almost bitter. "Different priorities? Riley, you drive a car that's older than some of the servers at this party. You live in a studio apartment above a bakery. You shop at consignment stores and clip coupons. Those aren't different priorities. That's survival mode." And what if it's not? The question comes out before I can stop it, and I watch Vanessa's expression shift from frustration to genuine bewilderment. "What do you mean, what if it's not?"
I stare at my sister, this woman who has spent the evening systematically undermining my self-worth in front of her successful friends, who has made my car into a family embarrassment, who genuinely believes that my lifestyle represents some kind of failure to launch. For 3 years, I've let her believe this fiction because it was easier than explaining the truth. But standing here in this parking lot with Harrison Blackwell's business card burning a hole in my purse and Emma Chen's medical crisis weighing on my mind, I realize that I'm tired of being seen as the family disappointment. What if the car and the apartment and the clothes aren't about money at all, I ask. What if they're about choice? Vanessa stares at me like I've started speaking a foreign language. Choice? Riley, what are you talking about? Why would anyone choose to struggle when they don't have to? Maybe because not everyone defines struggle the same way you do. Before Vanessa can respond, the clubhouse door opens and Marcus Webb emerges, followed closely by Charlotte Pemberton. They both look slightly concerned, as if they've been discussing my abrupt departure and decided to check on me. Riley, Marcus says, approaching carefully, I hope everything's okay. You left pretty quickly after Harrison's offer. Everything's fine, I reply, though my voice probably doesn't sound convincing. Charlotte glances between Vanessa and me, clearly picking up on the tension. We were just discussing what an incredible opportunity this could be. Harrison Blackwell doesn't make offers like that lightly. What opportunity? Vanessa asks, her voice sharp with renewed interest. Marcus looks at me uncertainly, as if asking permission to continue. When I don't object, he explains Harrison's offer to hire the Riverside Medical Foundation's designer for a major corporate charity campaign. 6 figures, Charlotte adds, and I watch Vanessa's expression shift through several emotions, surprise, calculation, and something that might be pride mixed with bewilderment. And you think Riley can connect Harrison with this designer? Vanessa asks. We think Riley might be more connected to high-level design work than she's been letting on, Marcus says diplomatically. There's a moment of silence that feels charged with possibility and danger. Vanessa is studying my face with the intensity of someone trying to solve a complicated equation, while Marcus and Charlotte wait for me to clarify my relationship with the foundation work. Riley, Vanessa says slowly, are you telling me that you've been doing professional work that you haven't mentioned to the family? I could deflect again, change the subject, make some excuse about client confidentiality. But something about this moment, standing in this parking lot with my beat-up Honda visible in the background, surrounded by people who are finally starting to see that my life might be more complicated than it appears, makes me want to stop hiding. Yes, I say simply. What kind of work? I take a deep breath, knowing that whatever I say next will change how my family sees me, how they understand the choices I've made over the past 3 years. The Riverside Medical Foundation, I say. I designed all their materials, their logo, their fundraising brochures, their website, their annual reports, all of it. Charlotte's eyes widen. You're the RMF designer that Harrison has been trying to find? I nod and watch as Marcus and Charlotte exchange a look of recognition and respect. But it's Vanessa's reaction I'm most interested in, the way her expression shifts from confusion to something approaching awe. Riley, the Riverside Medical Foundation they're a major organization. They support families dealing with pediatric medical emergencies. Their work is important, I finish. Yes, it is. But how long have you been doing this work? And why didn't you ever mention it? This is where the conversation gets dangerous, where I have to decide how much truth I'm ready to reveal. Because telling them about the design work is one thing, but telling them about the foundation's funding source is something else entirely. 3 years, I say. And I didn't mention it because the foundation operates under strict confidentiality agreements. The families they support are dealing with medical crises. They don't need their personal situations becoming social media conversation fodder. Marcus nods understandingly. That makes sense. Medical privacy is crucial in that kind of work. But Riley, Vanessa presses, if you've been doing this level of work for 3 years, work that people like Harrison Blackwell are actively seeking out, then why do you live like you're barely making ends meet? It's the question that cuts to the heart of everything, the one that threatens to expose not just my professional accomplishments, but my financial situation and my reasons for maintaining the fiction of struggle. Because, I say, meeting her gaze directly, some things matter more than appearances. Such as? I gesture towards my Honda, sitting in its corner of the parking lot like a rust-colored confession. What if I told you that the car you've been embarrassed by all evening, the car that's made you question my life choices and worry about what your friends think, is actually the most important vehicle I've ever owned? Charlotte looks puzzled. What do you mean?
I walk towards the Honda and the others follow me across the asphalt. When we reach the car, I unlock the trunk with hands that are surprisingly steady despite the magnitude of what I'm about to reveal. The trunk of my 15-year-old Honda Civic doesn't look like much from the outside. Faded carpeting, a spare tire that's probably as old as the car itself, the usual collection of emergency supplies that practical people keep in their vehicles. But tucked beneath the spare tire, in a weatherproof document case that I've carried with me for 3 years, are files that would change everything if I chose to share them.
3 years ago, I begin, lifting out the document case, I inherited money from my great-aunt Patricia. Not a fortune, but enough to change my circumstances significantly. Enough to buy a new car, move to a better apartment, live the kind of life that would make family gatherings more comfortable for everyone. Vanessa's eyes narrow. You inherited money? Why didn't you ever mention that? Because I didn't spend it on myself. I open the document case and pull out a thick folder filled with medical records, treatment authorizations, and funding approval letters. The papers represent 3 years of careful financial management, of research into pediatric medical conditions, of coordination with doctors and social workers and insurance companies. Emma Chen, I say, handing Vanessa the first file, 7 years old, diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Her parents are both teachers, good people, stable family, health insurance through the school district. But the experimental treatment that could save her life isn't covered by their insurance. Cost? $47,000. Vanessa opens the file with trembling fingers, scanning the medical reports and treatment plans. Marcus and Charlotte peer over her shoulder, both of them looking increasingly stunned as they realize what they're seeing. This is... Vanessa starts, then stops, apparently unable to find words. Treatment authorization approved by the Riverside Medical Foundation. I continue, pulling out another file. Funding source? Private donation. Anonymous donor requested by the family to maintain their privacy and dignity. I hand her another file. Jake Morrison, age 4. Spina bifida requiring specialized surgery. Parents lost their house to medical debt before they found the foundation. Treatment cost, $62,000. Funding approved. And another. Sophia Martinez, age 9. Rare genetic condition requiring enzyme replacement therapy. Insurance company classified it as experimental. Monthly treatment cost, $8,000. Ongoing funding approved for 2 years. With each file I hand her, I watch Vanessa's expression change. The condescension is gone, replaced by something that might be recognition, might be respect, might be the dawning realization that her struggling sister has been quietly funding medical miracles while driving a beat-up Honda to maintain the fiction of financial instability. "Riley," Marcus says softly, "how many children are in these files?" 37 so far. Total funding approved over 3 years? Just over $800,000. The number lands like a physical blow. Charlotte actually takes a step backward, while Marcus lets out a low whistle. But it's Vanessa's reaction that matters most to me, the way she stares at the files in her hands like they contain secrets to the universe. $800,000, she repeats, her voice barely above a whisper. You've donated $800,000 to children's medical treatments? Not donated, I correct. Invested. In futures that might not have existed otherwise. But how? Vanessa asks, and I can hear genuine bewilderment in her voice. Where did that kind of money come from? I pull out the final folder from the document case, this one containing investment statements, account balances, and carefully calculated financial projections. The papers that prove that the struggling graphic designer who clips coupons and lives above a bakery is actually quite good at managing money when she chooses to. Aunt Patricia left me more than I initially let on, I admit, and I've been investing it carefully, growing it, using the returns to fund the foundation's work while preserving the principal for future cases. How much more? Vanessa asks, though she's not sure she wants to know the answer. I meet her gaze directly. Including the original inheritance and investment growth over 3 years, approximately $2.3 million. The silence that follows this revelation is absolute.
Even the distant sound of highway traffic seems to fade away as the four of us stand in the parking lot surrounded by luxury vehicles that suddenly seem insignificant compared to the files scattered across the trunk of my Honda. $2.3 million, Charlotte repeats, as if testing the words. You have $2.3 million and you drive this car and live in a studio apartment? Because every dollar I don't spend on myself is a dollar that can go towards saving a child's life. The car gets me where I need to go, the apartment is perfectly adequate for my needs, but Emma Chen's experimental treatment, Jake Morrison's surgery, Sophia Martinez's enzyme replacement therapy, those things matter more than what people think about my lifestyle choices. Vanessa is still staring at the medical files, her perfectly manicured fingers tracing the edges of treatment authorizations and funding approvals. When she finally looks up at me, her expression is unlike anything I've ever seen from her. Not condescension or pity or embarrassment, but something approaching wonder. "Riley," she says quietly, "you've been saving children's lives while I've been mocking your car." "You didn't know," I reply, though the words feel inadequate. "But I should have known," she continues, her voice gaining strength. "I should have known that my sister wouldn't choose to struggle unless there was a reason. I should have trusted that your choices meant something, even if I didn't understand what." Marcus clears his throat gently. "Riley, this is extraordinary. You've essentially created and funded your own charitable foundation while maintaining complete anonymity. That level of commitment, that kind of sacrifice. It's not sacrifice, it's investment. Investment in futures, in hope, in the idea that every child deserves a chance at life regardless of their family's financial situation. But you could have both. You could have helped these children and still lived more comfortably yourself. You didn't have to choose between your own welfare and theirs." I close the document case and return it to the trunk, taking my time to organize my thoughts. When I turn back to face them, I know how to explain the choice I made 3 years ago.
When you have enough money to fundamentally change your own life, or to fundamentally change the lives of others, you have to decide what kind of person you want to be, I say. I could have bought a BMW and a penthouse apartment, and I would have been comfortable and happy and completely irrelevant. Or I could use that money to give children a chance at life they wouldn't otherwise have, and accept that people would judge me for appearing unsuccessful. "But why not do both?" Vanessa asks. "Why not help the children and also live well yourself?" "Because," I reply, closing the trunk with a soft click, "when Emma Chen's parents are choosing between rent money and medical bills, when Jake Morrison's family is living in their car because they lost their house to medical debt, it would be obscene for me to spend foundation money on luxury cars and designer clothes. The work requires moral consistency. I can't ask families to sacrifice everything for their children's health while I refuse to sacrifice anything for the same cause." The four of us stand in silence for a moment, the weight of this revelation settling over the parking lot like a physical presence. Around us, the remaining party guests are beginning to make their departures, luxury vehicles starting up with the quiet purr of expensive engines. "Riley," Vanessa says finally, "I owe you an apology, not just for tonight, but for 3 years of assuming I understood your life when I didn't understand anything at all." "You don't owe me anything," I reply, though I can feel something loosening in my chest, some knot of resentment and hurt that's been tied tight for years. "Yes, I do," she insists. "I made your choices into a family embarrassment when they're actually the most admirable thing anyone in our family has ever done. I mocked your car when it's been carrying the weight of miracles." As we walk back toward the clubhouse, I notice that Marcus and Charlotte are both looking at me differently now, not with the polite concern they showed earlier, but with genuine respect and admiration. It's a feeling I'm not accustomed to at family gatherings. "So," Marcus says as we reach the building, "I have to ask, are you still interested in that rebranding project for my construction company?" I laugh, surprised by the question. "After everything you just learned, you still want to hire the woman who drives a beat-up Honda?" He replies, "I want to hire the woman who has quietly saved the lives of 37 children
while building a successful design business and managing a multi-million-dollar charitable foundation. The car is irrelevant. And, Charlotte adds, I really hope you'll consider Harrison Blackwell's offer. Someone with your experience and your values could do incredible work in corporate philanthropy. As we re-enter the clubhouse, I see Harrison across the room, deep in conversation with Trevor about something that's making them both laugh. In a few minutes, I could walk over there and tell him that I'm the designer he's been looking for, that I'm available for the kind of high-profile work that could transform my public profile overnight. But first, I have a foundation meeting tomorrow morning with Dr. Rodriguez. Emma Chen's condition has taken a turn, and there are decisions to be made about treatment options and funding priorities. The work that really matters, the work that no one will ever see or celebrate, continues regardless of what happens with corporate contracts and professional recognition. That's the thing about real success. It doesn't require an audience. It doesn't need recognition or applause or admiration from family members at engagement parties. It just needs commitment and consistency and the quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing your choices have mattered in ways that can't be measured by salary figures or status symbols. As I walk across the elegant clubhouse floor, heading toward a conversation that could change my professional life forever, I think about the 37 children whose lives have been changed by a beat-up Honda Civic and the secrets it carried in its trunk. That's a kind of success that no luxury car could ever provide. And tomorrow morning, when I drive that same Honda to the hospital for another foundation meeting, I'll still be choosing substance over appearances, impact over image, the work that matters over the work that pays. Some victories are quiet. Some success stories are written in medical files and treatment authorizations rather than business magazines and social media posts. And sometimes the most important car in the parking lot is the one that everyone else is embarrassed to be seen with.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.